Hello, everyone. I'm Shane Wells.
And I'm Pat Deprisco.
We got some great news this week. We've had over 500 people join the educational series platform, with several thousand webinars taken in. We've got 19 different webinars posted up, and there's really a race for the one with the most views. It's currently neck and neck. It's a tie between Rapid Recapture by Suds Creative and our very own Inside Analytics. Pat Deprisco is our guest today. He is currently the Vice President of Sales for the western half of the U.S. for NCS. Over the past 16 years, he's gained his experience through installing several hundred car washes and really made a name for himself in the industry. He began as an entrepreneur on the distribution side, and after growing the company to one of the largest in the country, he became a family member of NCS. We are excited to bring convenience store operators the opportunity to change their perspective on car washes. This session will dig deeper into the idea of growing revenue in a place that you've not considered before or want to see more clearly. Welcome to Increasing Your Car Wash Volumes at the C-Store. We've seen convenience stores under pressure for margins for a while, but during this coronavirus epidemic, there has been even more pressure. It's come under more serious consideration. We've got reports back that at C-stores, customers are purchasing less high margin items and more of the low margin items like alcohol and tobacco and less of the food products.
Right. We've seen that across the country. Like everything that's happened to us, this will pass. What I see is, as we come out of this, how do we come to market? We're going to have to be different. We're not going to be just opening up status quo. So as we look at the new way to come to market, this is where that new experience, reload, refresh comes into play.
Okay, so we can somewhat deal with these pressures, managing orders, refocusing on labor costs, refreshing marketing for increased sales. Specifically today, we're here to talk about car wash revenue and the profit available to C-stores in this space.
So I work a lot with convenience store customers. They're all into that mindset that the car wash that they currently have is a necessary evil. It's out there, it washes cars, they have to reset it, but they don't put a lot of thought into it. It's not branded anything special. And when I present the concept of the refreshing the bay or adding the express tunnel and what they can do with the marketing and the volumes I can get out of that, some of them are just shocked that they've never considered it before and are excited about looking at a new opportunity.
So when you say they're excited about or consider it, specifically, we are talking about pulling out an older, dilapidated automatic and replacing it with a small version of an express tunnel.
Correct. We're looking at the standalone car wash, the express sites specifically. They have changed. The customer's expectation of a wash over the last decade has gone from just wash my car to now I want clean, shiny, dry. I want some of the bells and whistles and the theatrics that go into that. If you see these standalone expresses, they're very much over the top. As we look at the express tunnel in a C-store space, we're allowed to offer the customer a faster experience and push more cars through the C-store than it currently has with the existing rollover based. Overall, this helps bring more volume to the C-store to help with growing C-store sales, fuel sales, and most importantly, revenue through increased volume and increased ticket price.
So I know we'll get into this more in detail, but just real quick, what are some of the real world numbers that you can put the Deprisco stamp on for volume expectations?
We've seen numbers on the high side, sites that were doing well, washing 3, 4, 5,000 cars already, jumped to wash 170,000 cars. So that means that they're washing 14,000 cars a month. So you're looking at 3 times the volume of a site that I would say is an A-plus performer anywhere in the country. What we're looking to target is that 10,000 cars a month or 100 to 120,000 cars a year.
So you're saying there's peak performers, and then there's your typical high performers. That's huge. So when you consider the higher ticket average, talk about that coupled with the volume.
So when we look at that, we have an average rollover if it's doing $7, $8 for its blended average. When we reload that site and bring on an express exterior model, we end up finding that not only do we wash more cars, but we're able to drive a higher ticket price through that store through different marketing campaigns, different applications that the standard rollover can't perform. So what we see is a $2, sometimes $3 ticket gain on top of that increased revenue stream that they get.
Wow. So this really amplifies the return on investment. You've got increased volumes as well as increased ticket average. So you multiply those. That's amazing. So this is why we're bringing out this information to C-store operators, or bringing it to them again if they've already heard it. It's a proven model of success. You've done it repeatedly. And we're really looking at raising the revenue per square foot of the entire site, rather than just thinking about the revenue per square foot inside the C-store. So now we understand the why, the return on investment, and we have an overview of things. So let's get specific. I want to ask you, throughout this, questions on targeting in on which sites would be good for this. Now we understand the why, and we've got an overview of things. Let's get specific. I want to ask a few questions, targeting in on what makes a site work in this scenario. What are the difficulties of remodeling, challenges? What changes do the store manager need to consider for operations? Some explanation of the equipment, and how do you market this car wash as a C-store? And then finally, dig into the return on investment, dig into the math, and really see the breakdown on this. So before I start in on planning, I want to quickly cover the differences between the wash types, have you walk through the benefits of each. Up on the screen, I have the Radius Touchless Automatic, Soft Gloss Max Touch, the 3-brush, and an Express Wash. So just talk about the different classes there.
What you have is a touchless wash, chemical and water. It's good for a maintenance wash. As we get into the friction types, whether it's the 5-brush or the 3-brush, they're both designed for a friction wash, can offer different types of waxes, some tire cleaning, high pressure application. The 3-brush offers a touchless wash or a friction wash, so you have more of a combination wash. And then you have the Express model, which is your pull through the conveyor system. That's going to bring up the quickest wash and all the bells and whistles and packages to help increase that sale.
When we're looking at these and talking about swapping out an automatic, what type of lift in sales can you see from taking an old tired automatic and putting in a fresh one with new marketing, lighting, those type of things?
So when we reload an automatic, we're looking at about a 25% lift from the sales. So customers that gravitated to another wash but still like your C-store will come back because you have the shiny penny. So everybody wants to gravitate to see what's new. So the wash will bring that customer base back. It offers some of the bells and whistles that customers are looking for. You pick up a little bit of speed, so you can increase your volume through. You get retention of customers that were on the bubble. But normally when we reload an automatic of any type, we see about a 25% increase in its volume.
So translating that, if I've got an old tired automatic doing 10,000 cars a year with 70,000 in revenue, I could reasonably expect to go to 12,500 cars a year at 85 to 90,000 in revenue.
Correct. Customers will tend to gravitate to the newest product out there in the marketplace. The wash will produce a clean, dry, shiny car, so it will satisfy all those buckets. The nice piece about this is it brings those customers, as we talked earlier, onto the site, back into the C-store, back to fueling again. So even though we replaced a rollover with an existing rollover, we added some of the marketing enhancements that the new equipment can do. We've hit all the buckets, and we brought our existing customer base and solidified that. We also brought another 25% new customers that weren't either coming to your site or using your wash back into the fold. So you have that market share that you gained.
Nice. So we're refreshing and renewing the car wash the same way we're refreshing and renewing inside the C-store. So it's proven that this increases sales, provides a good return on investment. Automatics can typically do 6 to 12 cars per hour. And so they're putting a clean, happy customer out of the bay every 5 to 10 minutes, depending on which wash they select.
You compare that to the express model. We, instead of doing 6 to 12 cars, we're now doing 60 to 80 cars with no problem. Clean, shiny, dry, extra waxes, all of the enhancements now that we can drive those ticket prices up. What it translates into is we can put out a car every minute, roughly. If you take that volume against what a rollover does, you can do 5, 10, 15 times more the volume than an automatic can. So if you have a site that's hindered by stacking or is so busy that customers are waiting 30 minutes, you can now put all those cars through 5, 10 times as fast and keep up with the demand of the customers wanting to come through. So nobody's leaving the site or walking away. Not to mention the critical point is we're driving more volume at a higher ticket price.
Right. More volume is speed of service. And just as a side note, we're accomplishing that because not only do we have more cleaning power in a tunnel, but we're also processing multiple cars at the same time. Somebody's paying, right. Somebody's getting pre-soak, somebody's in the rinse section, and somebody's exiting the bay. So there's so many facets that bring this speed of service, which is so important. So on screen, I'm referencing a study from C-Store Decisions. They did a webinar series, and they referenced the 2018 Miller Coors study that they found if a customer cannot find a beer product that they're looking for inside the store, a third of the time they'll leave without purchasing anything. On the other hand, if they can find their brand in 10 seconds or less, they're more likely to purchase other items in the store. They go on to say, understanding your customers can increase revenue, not just for your alcohol sales, but also your non-alcohol offerings. Bringing this over into the car wash, customers want a fast delivery of service as well as a good product. And when they get that, they're more likely to purchase other items from your site, whether it's fuel or food.
100% correct. I mean, Mills Coors hit it right on the head. Customer wants a great experience. The automatic can give you a great experience, but the express will give you speed, will give you more options to choose from. That customer becomes happy with the overall wash that they have. They're more inclined to come into the store. They're more inclined to become a gas customer. So through those processes, you're increasing your volume of snacks and sodas and cookies, everything that's inside the store at a nice margin, as well as a fuel volume, as well as generating a higher return on the car wash. So now you have 3 strong profit centers within your organization.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we need a study on that. It's pretty simple when you think about it. If you're giving them better products and better services, they're going to increase their purchases. But it is obvious that refreshing the automatic and rebranding it's a good investment. And wherever possible, an express tunnel should be considered. And then you can have a game-changing situation. So now we've covered the different types of car washes. Let's get back into the express. And first, let's talk about existing C-stores and site selection. Tell us what makes for a good potential site and what are some things that are restrictions?
When we're planning on putting in an express model, we're looking at increasing your throughput massively. With this, we need to make sure that your current bay, your ingress egress, where the pumps are, how much power, all of those things come into play when we look at, will the property handle the volume that's going to have. The number one thing we need to look at is, what does your existing building look like? How big is it? How tall is it? How wide is it? All of those are factors that are going to make this a easier transition or much more complicated and much more expensive transition.
I've got up on screen the first of a couple layouts. So let's just kind of talk through these a little bit. You know, one of the things in that list, equipment room, really important, necessary even for the tunnel. So walk us through this layout. Tell me what you think of it.
Well, this is a great site. So you have the car wash sitting off to the side. You have great ingress, egress into the location. You have a massive stacking exit into a row of vacuums. So what we have here is an A-plus site. So you have, looks to be a 50, 60-foot building. We could probably add another 20 feet outside the front. So we have some 80 feet of total car wash space to play with. We can probably generate speeds of 80, 90 cars an hour through this site with all the vacuums and the way it's situated. So I would say that this is a home run site. If I was looking at it saying it looks like it would be the easiest to upload. It looks like you have all the power there because of the vacuums that already exist.
True. This is an actual site that we did, and it was a home run. So they had an in-bay automatic that was washing around 20,000 cars a year and remodeled with an express, and now it's producing over 120,000 a year. Ticket average is up, in-store sales are up. I couldn't get in-store sales figures. They didn't want to give that information out, but it was a perfect fit for an express. So now let's put up one that may not be as ideal. Let's talk about the second location here. What do you see in it?
So here we have a little bit more difficult of a situation. So we have a building that doesn't allow a lot of stacking. It doesn't allow for any of the conveyor to stick outside of it. It won't allow for any vacuums. If the car wash gets busy, we're going to potentially back itself into the street, block an entrance, or we're going to block the back corner of the pumping. The bay looks small. It has a very small back room. So when I look at this, and if we take in constraints, bay length, stacking, turn radiuses, is there room for vacuums? What does the ingress egress look like? I would say that based on where the car wash is, that potentially we have to bring power across the gas pumps, that I would say that this is going to be a very expensive construction cost. And even after it's all said and done, I don't know if the site would vet out the returns that we're looking to get out of a express tunnel.
So you're not only just looking at the sensitivities to the bay, but you're also looking at sensitivities to the site. You brought up blocking pumps with car wash stacking it. So we have to have a holistic approach to this. Now, all Correct. Of these considerations that you just laid out, good and bad, would they convey directly over to new construction, just like a remodel?
So the new construction is a lot easier. And to your question, yes. So when we're looking at new construction, we're kind of in a design stage with the owner and the architect, and we're kind of saying, all right, we need this size building, we need this much power, we need the site away from the ingress egress. So we have a little bit more flexibility to build what we're looking for. So when we're talking about a site that has the potential to wash 100, 120,000 cars or 10,000 cars a month, the sheer volume of that has to be logistically handled. So on a new build, very easy.
Okay. So we've seen some large convenience store chains moving to the express model in the past few years with new stores and with some remodels. Real market leaders, 7-Eleven, EG Group, Spinks. What do they know? What do you know? What do you see with the large chains?
So large chains are moving in that direction where it makes sense. They're getting into the business because they can produce more volume onto their site. They've caught on to the fact that not only are we going to increase our car wash volume, but we have the potential to capture a market share that we didn't have at that time. So meaning everybody likes the car wash, they come to the car wash, there's a patronage about the car wash, so I use the C store, and they can capture that piece. The bigger part is that if they have a few of those located, they can start selling the fast passes, which we'll get into later. But then they can market their sites as a buy a fast pass or come bring your loyalty here. And then if you're 10 miles over there or wherever you are, and there's another, that's been the big difference. That piece is what's driven the smaller groups or some of the larger MSOs to start thinking about this is the wave of the future. This is what we have to get into. So if we have the space and we have the ability to do it, we need to talk and have those conversations.
So we see those market leaders, they've identified the trend, they're moving that direction. But this is something that we've done for years with multi-site operators, even individual operators. It's well within their grasp, and they can produce the same kind of numbers out of their sites as these multi-site.
Correct.
It's a game changer. So since it's a game changer, it has to come with some challenges. Tell us about some of the things you've run into over the years. You put in so many that were surprises or maybe expected and just par for course.
Yeah, I wish there wasn't so many surprises, but when we first started, there were a lot of surprises. So, and we learned through all this, and it helped build the process as we go. But when we first started doing them, we need to upgrade a transformer. The transformer sits usually in the front of the property. We need to bring it to the back room, which sits across the property. That's no big deal. You start digging, and lo and behold, there's the gas line. And then the city comes in and says, oh, you got to encase that in concrete. Oh, so that costs $35,000, $40,000 to encase it in concrete and a week worth of permitting. Or you decide that you're going to put the car wash in, and you don't realize that the C-Star is the only backflow preventer. So when you put the car wash in and you start washing this massive amount of cars, well, it sucks all the water through the line. And then the C-Store can't make ice, so it can't sell sodas, or the toilets don't flush. So these are all of the obstacles that can happen along the way. You buy an existing store, you don't get an as-built, or you can't find the as-built, God only knows what you're going to find down there. So it could add costs, and you have to be prepared for those dynamic changes as they come up. Our job is to help mitigate that and make it as small as possible.
Right. So we're part of the process. We've stubbed our toes in the past. We bring all that knowledge to the table. So having contingency money set aside for construction, those are all part of what we bring to the table. What else can the customer expect from NCS as their equipment provider through the planning, design, construction, and startup even?
So if you look at us as more than the equipment provider, which we already have a partnership with you on the rollover side, the equipment's easy, so we'll take it off the table. The real piece is, do we do the financials? Have we analyzed the site? Does it make sense to move forward? And if it does, and look at, they have the car counts thing, we make sure that we can do a financial analysis, make sure that you can support the volume and the cost of this job. So after that, we get into equipment drawings. What is the project going to look like? We help you with the bid process. We help you with the permitting, work with you with the inspections, help you pick out your subs to make sure that we get a good, smooth project. Installation, fire up, that's all easy on our side. And that's where the magic starts. It's day one when we turn over the car wash is really where our partnerships begins. How do we help you market it? How do we make sure that we're driving enough customers into it? That's the win-win piece. We're not here just to sell you equipment and move away. We're here for the long-term relationship that gets built.
Yeah, it's a very symbiotic relationship. The more cars you wash, the better volume, the higher customer satisfaction, then the more opportunity we have for additional sales, whether it's premium products that you're selling to the customer on the car or doing another site. So that's challenges construction. What about challenges for operations? Sites doing these type of volumes, it really is going to be a new frame of mind for a lot of operators to think about attending them.
So this isn't the build it, stick it in the corner, and let it run 24 hours a day operation by far. This is a manned operation. You can't leave it alone. You have to have some mechanical wherewithal. You want to be able to do some of your repairs yourself to keep the process moving. So, and it takes a mindset that you can't just have your manager and assistant manager in the C-store and then one guy at night. If you want to run the car wash, you have to have a dedicated person. The other big piece is, and we'll get into some of this in a little bit, you have to be prepared to try and market that. The C-store gas one way and the car wash another, because now it is a full-blown profit-generating center. And if you're talking washing 10,000 cars at $11 average, you're talking a $1.2, $1.3 million revenue stream, far greater than the 50, 60, 70, 100,000 it was making before. So you have to respect what you have there and change your mindset. And if you're not prepared to do any of that, then this wouldn't be for you. But if you are prepared to jump into that, then you can really get the benefits.
Those are the major challenges. We help through the process, we guide and bring that knowledge and experience. Let's look at some of the pictures of some of the construction, what it takes to turn an automatic into an express. Ones in particular that you'd like to look at.
We're going to pull up a site we did in California, and this site was a very successful rollover. And if you can see from the pictures, it's a 47-foot bay roughly. We had a little bit of room out the end. The exit was a aggressive 30-degree angle going out, so the car fell out and left, but it had good volume. So it made sense to look at how do we transform that into an express tunnel. So if you see the construction, we're tearing out the bay, we're tearing out the concrete, we cleaned up everything, we put new lights in, and we start with the basic concrete, which is critical to this, making sure that the water flows back into the sandal separators, making sure the steel is correct, making sure the floor is smooth so we have a nice transition for the car to go to. If we continue looking at some of the pictures, you get into what your back room is. So most stores have an 8-foot back room that's 20 or 30 feet deep with all of their records and extra soda cups and whatever that storage may be. That has to be pulled out. We need all the room, and you can see from this, we kept the existing back room. We took out one of the doors. We added some light to it, so we brightened it up, and all the equipment fit in there, except for the tanks. The tanks were extremely big. They didn't fit into the back room because of the height. So we found a room around the side of the building. We built a little enclosure, and we put the tanks in there. So there's a lot of ways to skin the cat as we look through this. And if you look at the final offering, you can see the arches, you can see the equipment, the lighting has brightened up the bay. The critical point I want to put on this, there is no, and this is a shell site, there's no shell anywhere in this name, nor is the name of the car wash the name of the site itself. We worked with them to completely market the car wash different from the C-store. And then we took that marketing campaign and changed the name of all their rollovers too, so that any customer went to their site, they would see the new brand as part of the rollover, the tunnel, but it was a separate entity, and it had its own employee. They had their own assistant manager, managed the C-store, managed the car wash, but we kind of broke up and separated the two so that we can maximize its potential. And oh, by the way, that car wash a month or two ago before all this happened, washed 14,500 cars.
Not too shabby. You were talking branding there and bringing the sites together. That naturally brings us into memberships, pay station, how all of this truly revenue generating station comes to play. So when they're branding all these sites together, or even if you're an individual site, tell us about membership programs.
So membership programs are essential to the operation. It's a guaranteed revenue stream the first of every month. Rain, shine, snow, COVID-19, doesn't matter. The membership keeps coming through. Piece that's important for us to do is look at the pay station. Normally on a rollover, we have a old Wash Select 2 or maybe a C-Start. That pay station is not going to be robust enough to handle what this needs to do. So in order to sell these fast passes, we recommend using a more premier POS system. DRB happens to be the premier vendor in this space. What that offers, and I'll bypass all of the other pieces except for this one critical point. The biggest bang for the buck is that in order to sell a fast pass, the customer has to decide he wants one, has to come into the store, has to give you his information. You have to input it on some third-party website. You have to then get a tag, go out to his car, physically put it in, and then he can recharge it. And if his credit card declines, you will never know that until you go back and recharge his card for the next month's service. With the DRB system, the customer pulls up, the DRB system says, would you like to buy a membership? Here's our options. You say yes. It says, would you like to use the credit card you just inserted? You say yes. It takes a picture of your license plate, and at that point, you're done. 60 seconds, no employee, no interaction. The machine will upgrade and upsell the customer for you. So that, whatever the expense of DRB is, that dividend alone will pay you 10 times over when you have 1,000, 2,000 members, and you didn't have to have an employee there stationed all day long trying to upsell customers. That's the biggest bang for the buck.
You're making a huge investment in upgrading the site so you can produce volume. That's not the time to get skimpy on the pay station that controls the potential for the membership.
I have one customer that owns 27 locations and has a lot of the tunnels with us, and I bring some customers to talk to him, and he made one statement, I'll bring it up. He said, this is the big boy league, and if you're not ready to spend the money to make the returns, then maybe this isn't the right decision for you. And it holds true. This is a big expense. Equipment, construction, time, training, your physical involvement, hiring employees. But when you're washing 10, 12, 14,000 cars, making 140, 150,000, and with an 80% return on investment for the profitability of that month, it's well worth the risk.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a perfect segue into breaking down the math and numbers on the return on investment. So you've got a few examples. Let's put the first one up.
So we started with the slow site, 800 cars. What we ended up doing was the site had all the demographics to make sense that it could be a strong candidate in the wash business. So when we went to look at doing the remodel, the customer decided to remodel most of his site. So that cost of construction was extremely high. It was $1 million and change just to do the construction. But he went from 800 cars to washing 4,000 cars. It went from $6 an average to $9 an average. So what you look at is he ended up going from $70,000 a year to $500,000 a year. The piece that you have to look at is, if you just look at that number, he's looking at a return on investment about 3.95. So 3 years, almost 4 years, which isn't bad. But then we looked at what happened to his C-store. Well, his gas volume jumped up another 190, 200,000. His C-store business jumped up a couple hundred there. When you put that into the mix, as all that revenue was driven by the increased car wash and the increased volume to the site, his 4-year commitment dropped down to 2.3. So now you have, and that covered the full renovation of his C-store also. So think about it. If he didn't do the C-store and he just did the car wash and spent 200 grand, he could be paying for that in less than 4 months. So that's the real big bang for the buck in looking at a small site with low volume, but the potential in the analytics that made sense. If we look at our next example, we're going to jump into a bigger site. So this site's now washing almost 5,000 cars, okay? And it has a $8.50 ticket average. So you're making 600,000 a year. Well, when the customer's got that kind of volume, that's also a difficult conversation to have, because now I'm telling him he's going to double his volume, he's going to increase his ticket average, but you got to get him to believe that. So once we showed him the analytics, once we showed him some success stories, he moved forward. That site cost about $125,000 to remodel. The remodel time, we haven't talked about that, but I'll just give you a rough idea. It's about 8 weeks, 7 weeks, so you're going to be down. So we have to factor that lost revenue on a very high volume site as part of the cost to make the transition over.
Significant.
But when we opened up that site, it washed 10,000 cars and had an $11 ticket average. So if you take that, while he was doing 600,000, he went to do 1.2 million. So his gain on top of even the loss for 7-8 weeks that he was down, he was able to pay for this site in like 7-8 months. Then you take his volume.
That's amazing.
Which was already a high volume site. So he gained another 100,000 gallons of fuel. He gained another $10,000 a week worth of revenue out of the C-store. When you take that revenue on top of it, his return on investment was less than 4.5 months. So that's a no-brainer right there.
They're astounding and phenomenal. And he's just got to be so pleased that he made that decision.
Right. And, you know, it all comes back to the partnership you talked about. We're not pulling the trigger just to pull the trigger. We did all the research, we did all the analytics, and it all comes back to the financials. Everybody thinks they have a secret sauce, but if the numbers don't generate a profit, there's no secret sauce that's going to change that game. So it all generates to that, and that's kind of the big piece that we offer, is really understanding your business model and can you make the transition. Doing the operation and running it successful, that's on you. We help you through that process because it is a big change that you're going to have to make.
All right. So do you have another one you want to go through?
We have one other one that we could talk through, and that is a nice medium of the road. So it was a site that was doing 3,000 cars. It wasn't going to be the monster site. It was going to go from 3,000 to probably 6,000, 7,000. It ended up turning out exactly that. It went about between 7,000 and 8,000, so we got a nice return on it. We weren't expecting to get anything more than that, just because of the site had its own constraints. It was a super small site, so that construction was a little more expensive. We had to bring in electric. We had to do a little extra work. So you're looking at about $180,000 worth of construction to get that done. A little longer on the permitting process, but when we were all said and done, once again, that site went from 3,000 to 8,000, went from $8 ticket average to a 1091 ticket average. So we saw the same results, doing real well at $600,000 a year to doing even greater at $1 million and change. Then the biggest bang the buck for that was its increased fuel and C-store volumes. Now the owner once again did not want to share that, because I think he added an extra 100 to 200,000 gallons of fuel because he brought so many people to his site. So I can't tell you what the extra savings was, but the overall return for him was, it took him about 8.9 months to get a return on investment out of that site.
It's fantastic.
Once again, I just want to, making it successful is a commitment to you as an owner, to make sure that you are branding it separately, doing the marketing pieces, investing in the employee, making sure there's no way to shortchange this and get the great benefits you're looking to get.
If this is something that a C-store operator owner out there says, gosh, you know what? I'm just not sure. We can come out and provide them assistance in vetting the site. So what's the process? What do they go through to discover, to find out what they don't know?
Couple names of some contacts that you could reach out to. From there, they'll vet your site out with you over the phone. After that, it's going to take us going out to the site. We need to look at your bay. Do you have the right height, width, length? We want 15, 16 feet. We need 12 feet high. Second big question is, do you have the electric? What's it going to take to convert this? Next, do you have the water demand? As we target those pieces that we make those check marks, yes, the site has everything it needs to make sense that it could be converted. Then we dive into the analytics to make sure that we have traffic counts, competition, we know what price point we're going to get. Does it make sense on paper that it's going to drive the volume that we need it to do? We don't want to make a $600,000 investment and have status quo results. If the site makes sense and we're looking at the proper analytics, then we move on. But you're looking at $500,000 in equipment, anywhere from 100 to 200,000 in construction, 8 weeks being down, plus if there's permitting, which there always is, permitting time, drawings, architects. So you do have some costs and some time. This isn't something that you could wake up today and say, hey, let's go and we'll be operational tomorrow. I would love that to be the case, but you're looking at a 3 to 6 month time frame before we even get to an opportunity to break ground.
We'll put all this together, sit down with them, walk through all the goods and the bads, what the returns look like. Certainly walk through those timelines again, specific to their site. And you know what? Maybe sometimes it's easier just to put in a new automatic and have it done in a few days, 2-3 weeks out. But there's going to be other times
that every site was a home run, but they're not, and we're very upfront and honest about that. You know, if it can be done and it makes sense, we'll do that. If not, then we go down the other road. We're not trying to force anything to happen because the results would be devastating.
This has been fantastic. So we've gone through why this is something to consider, why operators of C-stores should be looking to increase the revenue side at the car wash, how we go about selecting whether it's a good site or not, construction process, gone through the numbers. I really appreciate you taking the time to bring this out to everyone. I hope it's been a fantastic series.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time.